Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Erin and today is Friday, which means it's Book Review Friday once again. And today's book is a book that I have had in my possession for a year, over a year, and I have not read it. I don't know why. It's just one of those books that I look at and I want to read it and I'm like, I'm gonna read that, but I just never pick it up and I never read it, and I buy new books and then it kind of gets buried in the background, and that's basically what happened with this book. So I'm excited that I finally read it. It's been a year. I feel like that took me forever and way too long, but sometimes that just happens with me and books. So before we get started, I hope the lighting is okay. Because of the fires, the light outside is very weird, so I'm relying solely on my ring light. I hope it's not like too different than usual. I hope I won't be able to tell until after I film it and I'm editing, so I hope it's not awful. But just wanted to let you guys know, if the lighting does look different, it's because the light outside is yellowy orange. So today we are talking about Campfire by Shawn Sarles. I think that's how you say his last name. You know me and last names. I try my best. This is actually a YA horror. So I was interested because I've read some YA horror and I actually ended up really liking them, but I don't know, it can always be a little iffy with the YA horror because sometimes they can come off a little cheesy, I guess. Not that there's anything wrong with cheesy. I love cheesy books. It doesn't bother me one bit. We know that I love Fear Street books and anything R.L. Stine, so, you know, cheese doesn't bother me. But I didn't know if it was going to be like too cheesy or if it was going to be, you know, perfect. Let's look at the cover. This cover I think is really, really cool. I love the eyes. It's pretty freaky, honestly. And if you look close in the eyes, there's actually flames, which definitely makes sense with the book. We will talk a little bit more about that in a second. But yeah, I think overall the cover is really cool. It looks creepy. I mean, I think it does a good job of being eye-catching. Get it? Eyes. Eye-catching. I'm so funny. Okay. Yeah, so let's get into my synopsis and then I'll tell you guys my thoughts on the book. At 11 years old, Maddie Davenport lost her mom in a tragic fire. 5 years later, she's getting through life the best she can with the help of her father, her brother Charlie, and her best friend Chelsea. Since this is Charlie's last summer before going away to college, they want to do something a little bit special, so they decide to go on a big camping trip. Also going on the trip are two other families that they are close with. The camping trip starts out great. Their guide, Caleb, is a young man in his early 20s, and Maddie takes a liking to him. Chelsea and Maddie, being typical 16-year-old girls, decide that this is the perfect opportunity for Maddie to work on her flirting skills and kind of test it out on Caleb and see what can happen on this camping trip. The first night is fun. They start telling spooky stories around the campfire. You know, everyone loves telling spooky stories when you're camping. It's just a tradition that a lot of people love to do. However, you start seeing tension within the group, especially around the adults. It seems like they're all slightly irritated with each other. Just one little conversation and they start acting a little funny. They just have a little bit more bite than they should when talking to each other, but none of them want to say or admit that anything's bothering them. They kind of just keep going on as if nothing really is wrong. Then things start getting weird. It's almost like they're living the campfire stories that they told. Okay, that's gonna do it for the synopsis. I don't want to give too much away, you know, I don't like spoiling anything. So let's talk about my thoughts. First of all, I didn't think I was going to like this book. At first, when I first picked it up last year, I'm assuming I did think it sounded really good, and I don't think it sounds bad. It just doesn't sound like something I would necessarily pick up. Maybe last year it was more up my alley at the time, and now I just wouldn't have probably reached for it. If I was looking at other books, I feel like this one wouldn't have gotten picked over something like, you know, something else. And I think it has a lot to do with the plot description on the book, not necessarily the actual idea of the book, if that makes any sense. I feel like when you're reading the description, it comes off as a completely different book than when you're reading it. At least for me it did. And I'll get into that in a little bit. The first 100 pages are extremely boring. I didn't like the beginning of the book. I honestly didn't think I was going to enjoy any of the book because the first 100 pages dragged so badly that I was just so bored. I was so bored. I was also extremely tired when I was reading this book, so I kept almost falling asleep. That's not necessarily the book's fault, but it not being exciting also made it hard for me to concentrate. However, once they started telling the campfire stories, I found myself getting more invested and more interested, and I felt like I was more excited to read it. If you've ever seen the 90s TV show Are You Afraid of the Dark, it really reminds me of that in certain aspects. I used to love that show when I was growing up, so I feel like if you like that vibe, you might enjoy this book as well, because I did get that feeling for some of it, not the entire book, but I did feel like I was almost watching an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which I actually enjoyed. That's when I started enjoying the book a lot more than in the beginning. After it felt like Are You Afraid of the Dark, I was like, oh, maybe I do like this book. I honestly wished there were more of the campfire stories and the fun, spooky campfire scenes. I just really liked that, and it felt intriguing and fun to read, and it got me excited, and I really liked that aspect a lot, but it doesn't happen as much as I would have liked it to. If it had been a reoccurring theme, the problem is the book would have had to be longer. The book is less than 300 pages. I think it's like 288 or something like that. Is that right? Okay, sorry, 290. It's 290 pages, so just 10 pages off of 300. But I feel like if the book had been slightly longer and the author had cut some of the stuff from the beginning and added more of the middle, I feel like I would have enjoyed it better. But again, that's just me. I'm sure other people probably feel differently if you've read this book. But just for me, I think the beginning could have been cut down and had more added to the middle. I think that would have been better, in my opinion. Okay, so one of my biggest things about this book, it's kind of a negative and kind of a positive, but the description on this book, I'm gonna read you because I just feel like it's kind of misleading. It says, while camping in a remote location, Maddie Davenport gathers with her friends and family around the fire to tell scary stories. Caleb, the handsome young guide, shares the legend of the mountain men who hunt down unsuspecting campers and carve grisly antlers into their victims' foreheads. The next day, the story comes true. Now Maddie and her family are lost in the deep woods, stalked by their worst nightmares, because other stories were told that night, stories with endings far more terrifying. Yes, this is an accurate description, but it's also a little bit misleading, I think. I could be totally wrong, but this is just a personal thing. I feel like it's almost telling me that they're going to be in the stories, like the stories are actually going to come true. And yes, that's kind of what happens. I just feel like the wording is a little bit misleading in the plot description. I don't know, you could either be disappointed or happy with the outcome of the book based off of this description. I personally liked how the book came out more than if the stories were actually alive or, you know, they come true or whatever. I think it's just a slight misleading with words in this plot description because it's not exactly what's happening. And usually I don't mind plot descriptions that kind of mislead you, but I feel like this one misleads you a little bit more than normal. I mean, this could be just me. Maybe I'm just looking way too much into it, but I just feel like you expect something different from reading the plot description, and the actual plot that you read is not the same. If they had just tweaked the wording a bit, I feel like it wouldn't have been as big of a deal, but because of the wording, it almost makes it feel like two different books. I don't know, that could just be me. I'm not sure. I just feel like it's just a little bit worded weird. I don't like the way it's worded because it makes it come across as something that it's not. Maybe I'm just being too nitpicky. I am not sure. You can let me know in the comments down below if I'm over analyzing it or whatever. But personally, I just think that it makes it seem like something it's not. And it kind of bugged me, I guess. But I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised with how the book turned out. So the parents and the adults in the book were super annoying. They were my least favorite characters. I don't think I liked any of them in the end. They were all super annoying and super easy to hate. I just couldn't stand any of them. They were just really annoying characters. I'm assuming that was done on purpose since this is a YA or young adult novel. You know, teenagers see their parents as the bad guys. You know, they're not always good. They see them as, you know, stopping them from doing what they want to do. So I'm assuming they're supposed to be bad for that reason, as well as they're just bad people in general. But I guess it just makes sense because teenagers see their parents as, you know, bad. But they are actually just bad people in general. I just didn't really like any of the adults. So I don't know if it was because the teenagers are the main characters, so to speak, or if it's just because the adults were supposed to be super annoying people, which, if so, it worked. So I think the cheesiness comes into play with some of the scenes being so over the top. And I know it's been a long time since I was 16. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I haven't been 16 for a really long time. But I just feel like it was just a little bit too much. I know it's, you know, dramatic for an effect and whatnot, but it's just a little weird to read 16-year-olds behaving certain ways. I don't know. It's just kind of dumb. Some of the things they said, I was just like, okay, I don't think 16-year-olds talk somewhat like that. But I did feel like it was a little cheesy and a little over the top, but nothing that I couldn't, you know, bear through, and nothing that was too over the top that I wanted to quit reading or anything like that. The plot twist was so good. I honestly really enjoyed the plot twist. I really liked the ending of the book. I honestly thought it was a really good direction for the book to end up in, because I was worried that it was going to go down a road that I didn't want to see it go down, but I was pleasantly surprised when the plot twist happened and everything started coming to a head. I was like, oh, this is what you're gonna do with it. Okay, and I actually enjoyed it so much. I was scared it was going to become a typical camping horror story, and some of them are done very well. Sometimes I really enjoy camping horror stories. Camping's one of my most hated activities. It's not hard for me to be scared by a camping story because I just hate camping. So it's not too hard for me to get into camping stories, but sometimes I feel like they can be too obvious and too overdone. So I was a little bit worried it was gonna go into that territory, but it didn't, and I was so happy about that. Honestly, the second half of the book really switched my mood really fast. Like I said, the first 100 pages I wasn't really into. I couldn't get into it. And then it's like a flip switched and everything started getting more intense and better, and it just flowed nicer, and I enjoyed the second half so much more than the beginning half. Overall, I do think the book had some flaws and some issues, which, you know, I think is typical, especially for a debut novel, which this is his debut novel, so I'm not super surprised. I'm not super upset with the flaws or the little issues I had, because I did end up enjoying the book and actually liking it. Like I said, it was just a little boring in the beginning, and I just felt like just a little bit of things I had some issues with. But again, not enough to make me hate the book. I honestly thought as I was reading the first half that I was going to have to rate this like a 3-star on Goodreads, and I was kind of upset because I haven't done a 3-star in so long. I've been reading so many good books, but because the second half really switched it up for me, I am giving this 4 stars on Goodreads because I actually did like it way more than I anticipated. So those are my thoughts on Campfire. I actually did enjoy reading the book and I had a lot of fun with it. So let me know in the comments down below if you have read this book, what your thoughts are, if you enjoyed it, if you thought it was a little too cheesy, a little too kiddish for you. I would like to know your thoughts and what other people think about this book. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It lets me know what kind of content you enjoy from me. That way I can keep providing you with that kind of content. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We can become friends and talk about horror, books, makeup, all kinds of things. I do a lot on this channel, so hopefully there's something for everyone. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Bye!